At the end of last season, I tested a massive amount of cold weather hunting jackets. I went through just a ton. Over the last 2 years, I really hammered in on a ton of them, from the Sitka Fanatic to the ASIO Late season, Kryptek, Pnuma Highpoint, just a bunch of jackets. Huntworth has some great stuff. And I went through and I did a bunch of videos covering all those. Well, because of that, I got a lot of feedback from you saying, hey, I really want to see videos on the First Lite stuff. At the time when I put the videos out, First Lite had just come out with the Core, they'd come out with the Thermic, and it's the end of the season. I don't have an opportunity now to really test these jackets and put out a video that's, honest and trustworthy. So fast forward to this season now, and I have had the opportunity. I'm able to put them through my heat retention testing. I've been able to analyze them, take them out in the field, really understand the pluses and minuses of these, and really give you a good idea what First Lite has done, on the plus and minus side, because there are pluses and minuses for both systems. And we're going to go over that in this video. And I hope you leave this understanding which one of these fits you, or if neither of them fit you. So let's jump into it. So hey, if you don't know me, my name's Mike, the Everyday Bow Hunter, owner of ArcherHunting.com, retired U.S. Army Green Beret. I test a lot of gear, and really learned a lot about gear over the last couple of years. And a lot of times in these videos, I will reference stuff that I've done and tested before as a benchmark, so you have an understanding of where I'm coming from. First off, we'll talk about boat jacket. Right here, I have the First Lite Thermic jacket right here. I'm actually wearing the First Lite Core bibs. If I was standing here wearing the Thermic bibs through this video, I'd be a sweaty mess. It's way too much. And after being in these a while, I'm probably going to want to strip them off too. But anyway, then you have the First Lite Core jacket over here on my left. So both of them are sitting here, both of them on my testing mannequins that I put them through heat retention testing. Well, what is that? So I put a heating pad up underneath of both of these. They have a base layer on that's identical on both of them. I got neck gaiters on that are identical on both of them to keep heat in. I put a bungee cord around the waist so heat can't escape. And I put a temperature probe up inside. In fact, they both have the probe still up in there. So what I do over the course of an hour is I heat the heating pads up. Both heating pads have been benchmarked to heat up almost identical, and they get to a max heat of about 130 degrees. I do that over a course of an hour. I heat it up, and then I drop the heat off. And then I do what is called a heat retention test. Over the course of 2 hours, then we see how much heat these jackets retain. But on the front side of it, what we also identify is how much they can accumulate. How much heat can that insulation accumulate over that first hour and hold on to, right? And see what the differences are for each jacket. So we need to start off though. Let's start off with these jackets and talk about the insulation they're using, what it means, and how that affects the performance, right? And what they have on each one of these. Now, both of these jackets are identical in a lot of ways. They have a lot of the same features. First Lite has really identical features across these onto the bibs, so they're interchangeable. You can wear these bibs with the Thermic jacket, for instance, still have the kit link system that I'm going to talk about, and we'll do some more of that, with a full wear later in the video. But both of them have a very, very similar zip-off hood. They got an articulated collar for bow hunting. They have pockets on the outsides of the jackets here. These pockets, your chest pockets, go outside. And the reason why they're on the outside versus having your like chest pocket on the inside that you do with your like phone pocket and stuff like that is if you wear a bino harness, right, you can still get into your pockets on the outside. So you put your hand in your pocket from the side. That's a unique feature that's on both of these jackets. They have that pocket that you go to the outside versus coming to the inside. So that's on both. Both have the same kind of removable hood, very similar. They both have cinch setups on the waist, so you can cinch it down around your waist to keep the wind out. They're both 100% windproof. They're both have durable water resistant protection on them. They have the same kind of pocket here with the kit link system, right? So you have a regular zippered pocket here that is pretty warm, has some insulation in there, but then you have the magnetic system here that opens up for magnets here. So if you let it go fast, you'll have that, but it's really quiet when you do it any other way. And then you can reach inside, and when you reach inside that, then your hands are coming here into the bibs in the kit link system, and you can put your hands in here in this area of the bibs while you are sitting there hunting. Now, the one thing about this is, and I'll get to a full talk through on the bibs here in a little bit, but on the bibs, they made this pocket have 60 grams of PrimaLoft Gold insulation inside of this pocket so that you get that additional warmth in the pocket as well. So when you do use that kit link system and able to put your hands across in here into this pocket through the jacket, you're getting a warm hand warming pocket here. And if you put hand warmers in here, which I did, it really would get toasty. So anyway, that's the basics across the jackets. Now on the hands here, the thing that I noticed, you didn't really have any kind of gusseted or gasket type thing around the wrist to keep wind and stuff out. You really don't have that, but you can adjust the sizing on it, but it's done with snaps. So it's one thing that's kind of unique to this. It's where it's got the only thing on it that I think has any kind of noise to it, which is the snaps there. Not that you'd be snapping it on and off a lot out in the woods, really. So you have that. On the back here, you have the safety harness port on both jackets, identical, right? So there we go. Both jackets then very similar in that respect, right? All those basic features you see across both jackets. Okay, so the place where these jackets really start to differ, obviously, their individual capabilities and amount of insulation. Both jackets use PrimaLoft Gold insulation. First Lite decided to go PrimaLoft Gold with both. The difference is with the First Lite Core jacket, which is the lighter jacket, you're talking about 80 grams of PrimaLoft Gold in the body, 60 in the arms. Now, as a benchmark to talk about what this compares to or what that even should mean to you is, say for instance, you have the Sitka Fanatic. The Sitka Fanatic I consider to be my benchmark of all cold weather jackets because it was kind of a pioneer in this, and it uses PrimaLoft Silver insulation, which is a lower tier insulation. It's about 20% less warm or less effective than the PrimaLoft Gold. PrimaLoft Gold obviously above silver, right? So 120 grams in the body and 80 in the arms of the Sitka Fanatic, right? So you have 80 grams of gold and 60 in the arms of PrimaLoft Gold insulation. So with that, if you take that 20% variant, this makes this jacket probably just a little bit less effective than the Sitka Fanatic jacket, for instance. And in my testing, though, it actually did very comparable to it, very, very comparable to it. So the dynamics and the construction of the jacket they did had really, really paid off. But of course, the layering that I used when testing it also gets a vote because I had very effective layering when I was testing this out. But so review log for the First Lite Core jacket and bibs. And so it did really well today. Start off with temperature 29 degrees. It's about, I think it's up to 40 degrees now. It's 11 o'clock, a little after 11 o'clock in the morning. And started off pretty nippy this morning, but I never got cold. The PrimaLoft insulation in this really, really worked. Having it preheated, I think, helped. Layering system, I think, also needs to be looked at because I have a good layering system too. But as far as wind blockage, as far as comfort, as far as noise, very, very quiet, kept quiet the whole time. I really like the hood. Hood's really nice. The pockets are actually very warm. I had a hand warmer in there, but before I turned the hand warmer on, my hands were pretty warm inside there. I never put my gloves on the entire time. So that worked out really good. The bibs, I love the front pockets on the bibs. They're so soft, but they have these magnetic enclosures. And if you're sitting down, you can use the zippered part. But the really, really comfortable. So extremely effective in those temperatures, right? And it says that it's rated from 20 to 45 degrees. That's what First Lite tells us, right? And after testing it, I believe that's true with the right layers, right? You have the right layers on, and with this, with the bibs, everything together, and especially, and I think they measured this by putting on like the core vest as well, which I do not have and did not test. So anyway, with the layers that I had there at 29 degrees, I thought that would have been effective down much lower because I was warm the whole time. Never thought about being cold. I had a single electric hand warmer in my pockets here, and I was using this kit link system here, and it was fine. I barely ever even put a glove on. So really, really effective for those temperatures. Great job. Now, let's switch over to the Thermic. The Thermic, on the other hand, insulation-wise, has 170 grams of Primaloft silver. I'm sorry, Primaloft gold. 170 grams of Primaloft gold in the body, 133 in the arms. So this compares very well to, if you saw my test before, the only other jacket out there that has a similar breakdown of Primaloft gold that I've tested is the ASIO Late Season jacket. The ASIO Late Season jacket has 180 grams of Primaloft gold through the entire jacket, right? Through the arms, body, everything. So it is a heavier jacket. And this is, as well, as about 4 pounds, 2 ounces in the jacket. So as compared to like the 2 pounds, 6 ounces or so that the Core is. So about 4 pounds, 2 ounces. That's what you're going to get with a cold weather jacket. The only way you're going to get a lighter jacket is if, for that kind of the kind of temperatures, this is rated below 20 degrees. That's what they advertise it for, below 20 degrees, and I believe that's true based on my testing. The only way you're getting a lighter jacket is if you pay a lot more money for a lot more premier insulation type, like a Primaloft Gold with cross core, for example, or other ones that are coming out now that are much higher tier insulations, and you're going to pay a lot more money, right? So when you're getting one of these heavyweight jackets that for extreme cold weather, when you're getting an extreme cold weather jacket, you're going to get a heavy jacket. So every time I hear somebody complain about the weight of a jacket for extreme cold weather, it boggles my mind, right? But in comparison, like I said, temperature wise, and that the reason you get a lot of performance out of a lighter insulation is because it warms up faster. It doesn't, and it's not as dense and doesn't take as long to warm up. 170, 180 grams of Primaloft Gold insulation is going to take a while to heat up. You do not want that jacket to be cold when you leave the house, when you leave your car, whatever. Warm it up, pre-warm it up before you tie it off to your pack or shove it in your pack. The one thing I have to say is the Core, the First Lite Core, is extremely packable for a mid to late season jacket. I was very surprised. Okay, before I get up here and get the e-bike going, one of the things I noticed with the First Lite Core with the bibs on, really like the magnetic pockets, but the jacket packed down into my small little trophy line Palisade pack. As you can see in the video here, I shoved it in to my pack, no problems whatsoever. I had my Rugged Wool QZ on and never even had to worry about the packability of it. So very, very packable because of the material, and I'll show that here a little bit later. Now the Thermic, not quite as packable, right? It's just something you're going to want to tie off to the outside of your pack when you're walking in, unless you have a bigger pack that you can fit this in, because it is a bigger, heavier, and much, much warmer jacket, right? You're going to get a lot more warmth out of this jacket than you're going to get out of this jacket. And I'm going to get into my heat retention testing here in a minute. So the next thing is, let's talk about the durability of these jackets and how they handle just going through the woods, going through thick brush. I did go through some thick brush with the Core, and I did go through some thick brush with the Thermic. And the Core is, I want to say that the Core is built as a silent mid to late season setup. It is built to be extremely quiet. Everything here is so soft and quiet. In fact, when you put this jacket on, the Core is one of the most comfortable jackets I've ever put on. I think last year I put on the Pnuma Ventus jacket, and as soon as I put the Pnuma Ventus on, I was like, wow, that is comfy. This had the same effect. The Core is extremely, even the bibs, extremely soft and comfortable. You will enjoy being in the stand in the First Lite Core immensely, because you will be comfortable. It is almost like wearing, like heavy sweatpants and a heavy sweat top. It is very, very comfy, but there's a price to pay. Now, the First Lite Core jacket and bibs, I did go through some thick brush today and did not like it very well. It didn't do terrible. I was expecting it to be worse, but it's not something I would really take into stuff like this behind me here. You know, without having a decent trail through it. But I did go through some of that this morning, and I did okay. So not bad, not bad, but not what I want to. This is fairly thin here. So for comfort and quietness, it is ultra quiet, ultra comfortable, but it is not very durable at all. You do not want to take this through thick brush. I took it through thick brush. I have a bunch of pulls and stuff all over the pants here. I can actually feel it as I put my hands down here. All the places that stuff grabbed on. I was still pulling little burrs off and stuff when I was throwing this in the wash. It is definitely not built for thick stuff. If you can carry this stuff in and put it on at your stand, perfect. Or if you have a good walk where you're not even worrying about busting through a ton of brush. Now, I'm not saying you can't go through some, but some of the stuff I went through, the jaggers were just clinging on to me, and it is not good for that. The Thermic, on the other hand, has a soft shell top. It reminds me of the Phase for First Lite, has that same soft shell material, the whitetail catalyst, that same soft shell exterior here. Very quiet still too, but much, much more durable. You're going to be able to go through thicker brush with this. It's still not going to be fantastic, but it's going to be a lot better than the Core, right? The Core, not friendly to brush. Thermic, definitely much more durable. Now, I do have something to say about that. Now, when it comes to durability and going through thick brush, if you need something to hold up the thick brush, then wear brush pants. These are not built to be brush pants. They're built to at least get through it. The great thing about it is because it has this smooth, soft shell exterior, a lot of times when you do hit jaggers, they slide across it and they won't stick in. And burrs aren't sticking to this. Burrs are sticking to this, all right? They will stick to that. And the jaggers are going to grip into this on the Core a lot. So there's that for that. So you talk about durability, we talk about quiet. Both of them are extremely quiet. For late season windproof items, anything that's late season and windproof and has DWR protection on it, normally you have some kind of sound. I would put both of these in my top category for quietness across the board. They are very, very Sitka Fanatic quiet, right? Pnuma Highpoint quiet, right? They are extremely, extremely quiet. Very, very top tier with that. So built for bow hunters. Great job on building these out for bow hunters on both ends, right? So let's get into the next thing. How do they actually work on my heat retention testing? Because then why do I do heat retention testing? I do heat retention testing because the one thing that you get from reviews that you can't trust is somebody says, I like the Sitka Stratus. Definitely not a cold weather jacket. It's something that you can wear at 50 degrees and be comfortable, but you get down below that, you're going to be cold, right? So what changes that? Your layers, right? What you can never account for in a review is somebody's layering techniques, right? I have some of the best gear money can buy, and I wear it, and it keeps me warm. Those layers are great. But the one thing that they don't do is they don't tell me necessarily about the true effectiveness of gear like this, because I might be masking deficiencies by how well my layering system is. Now, heat retention testing that I talked about in the beginning of the video, we're doing an hour heat up and then do 2 hours of just letting it go and see how it holds heat, really, really can tell you a lot about the jacket. A lot about the jacket you wouldn't necessarily know. Now, I go back to the test that I did initially, and that is, we talk about the Sitka Fanatic I did. Last year, the Pnuma Highpoint was my #1 bow hunting jacket as far as cold weather. It had a tremendous amount of heat retention. It held on to heat. It really absorbed a lot of heat initially and then held on to heat for a very, very long time. Did a phenomenal job. It was my #1 for bow hunting. The #1 jacket overall was the Huntworth Matterhorn jacket. Now, how do these two compare with all the jackets that I tested last year? Well, they did a fantastic job. So I had the Pnuma Highpoint, I had the ASIO Late season jacket with 180 grams of Primaloft gold, right? And the Thermic here was right on the heels of the late season. The amount of retention between both of them was very, very close. And I'll get into the numbers here in a second. Very, very close. It did a great job of being right on that tier. It literally showed you, and as I see this, that 99 times out of 100 with these tests, the insulation and the amount of insulation that you see, the insulation type, will tell you exactly how that jacket's going to perform. So when you look at, okay, I have 170 grams of Primaloft Gold, and over here on the core, I have 80 grams of Primaloft Gold. That's more than double. This thermic has more than double what this has. So when you say this is 4.2 pounds here on the thermic and 2.6 ounces or whatever for 2 pounds 6 ounces for the core, and you can say, okay, I can see them having a very different level of performance when it comes to cold weather, right? Of course, right? So the thermic here, probably number 3 as far as overall performance. Now, as far as how it's set up, how the jacket feels when you wear it, the ability to go through brush, all the different factors that go in this, I would definitely put this as one of my top jackets, right? Very tough. I'd have to wear all 3 of the top jackets out in the field and go through the same scenario, you know, day over day to really, really test them out, because you're talking very, very close. And I think on the durability scale, it would definitely probably be one of the top as far as that goes. In fact, the ASIO and this probably very close on durability, right? The Pnuma Highpoint, not as much with that Berber fleece, kind of gets hung up on jaggers and stuff, right? That's why it has like the soft shell material lower in the pants and stuff. So you have to look at that. So this soft shell kind of build out that the thermic has is going to really help that as far as being one of my top rated jackets. And I'll look at that more when I get down the details to do my final review on my website. So, but then you would talk about the core here. Now the core, like I said, did extremely well in the testing. Extremely well in testing. I'm going to go over the numbers here in a second. And it put it really in that Pnuma Ventus category. It was just below the Sitka Fanatic in capability, which, you know, I told you the Sitka Fanatic uses the Primaloft Silver, 120 grams in the body, 80 in the arms. This uses the Primaloft Gold, 80 in the body, 60 in the arms. And so with a 20% performance difference between gold and silver, you can see that this would still be lower. The core would still be lower in insulation type. But like I said, performed extremely well, performed above expectations in the testing. So let's look at the numbers. All right, for the thermic, the amount of heat gained totally was 19.6 degrees. From the time I turned it on, started off, base temperature was 64 degrees, 64.5 degrees for both jackets. Started off in my basement here, ran them up. The amount of heat retained over 2 hours for the thermic was 6.4 degrees. That's how much it retained over, had a 32.6% retention ratio. It lost 13.2 degrees over time, right? It really held on. In that first 30 minutes, that first 30 to 45 minutes, it really, really held on. Yeah, at 60 minutes with the thermic, it had dropped 5 degrees basically. It had dropped about 5, and a little less than 5 degrees actually. So 4 point something, and it really, really held on. Now over the entire time, it lost 13.2 degrees. I think the total loss was 13.2 degrees and maintained 6.4. Now the core, on the other hand, you can expect it doesn't have as much insulation, right? This has 170 grams, that has 80 grams, as I said. Heat gained over that first hour, 14.6 degrees, right? As compared to the 19.6 of the thermic. Did very well. Heat retained after 2 hours, 4.7 degrees after a heat loss of 9.9 degrees over 2 hours, which is fantastic. Fantastic. Not only with that lower amount of insulation, it doesn't take much to keep that heat maintained, right? So your body heat, imagine I'm not removing heat once I'm hunting, right? I'm sitting there wearing it. Your body heat is still producing the heat necessary to keep that insulation warm. It's a slower amount of insulation. It's going to maintain it longer. So in those mid temperatures, in that 30 to 50 degree range, let me spit it out, 30 to 50 degree range, I think, at 30 degrees, this is a fantastic jacket setup. 30 is rocking. You are going to be warm. If you have the right base layers on, you're going to be really warm. And you can manage that and see what works and what doesn't. Final cool down values. Thermic went from 85.1 degrees down to 71.9 degrees, right? Over 2 hours, right? That's where that 19 degrees that we talked about come in. The core was at 80.8 degrees. That's where it maxed out, right? As we talked about, lower insulation is not going to gather as much heat because it's not as much there to gather. 80.8 down to 71. So they both ended up at the 71 range. 71.9 for the Thermic, 71 for the Core. So really, really outstanding job for both. Really, really great performance. Really impressed with the Core, with the amount of the lightness, because it's light and not as bulky. It's a great bow hunting setup for when you don't have to go through a massive amount of thick brush. You can handle a minor amount. Don't go through heavy stuff because it's not going to like it. You're probably going to tear it up, right? The Thermic, on the other hand, you can definitely take into thick stuff. You can go out there on your coldest hunts of the year, and it is going to perform extremely well for you. It's definitely in that top tier of jackets that I've tested. It's definitely going to do extremely well. Of course, just like the other jackets that I've tested, the Pnuma Highpoint, the ASIO Late season, the First Lite Thermic here is in that 4 pound range, right? Just over 4 pounds. All those jackets are in that range. So not surprising at all with the amount of insulation that they're going to be a heavier jacket. So you got to weigh that with what you're looking at. So that's it. That's everything. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear more from you. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you can get more notified when we do more videos. And until then, I'll see you next time.